I'm Reilly Ernst, the podcast coordinator for Crave the Sound. On this week's episode of Crave the Podcast, Sam Meiser talks with Molly Hudelson, a music journalist, about the band Arizona. They get into the band's most recent live stream, being a music journalist, mental health in music, and much more. Enjoy!
Thank you so much for joining me. Here, first, I wanted to talk about, so you have a very, diverse background in the musical industry. Would you kind of start by telling us a bit about what you've done and what you do now?
Yeah, so first thing I ever did in music, I booked shows at college at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio. And shortly after that, started a music blog called Circles and Sound Waves. That would have been April 2011 that launched. So that was really when I began writing about music, interviewing, photography, all of that. I wrote for Access. I wrote for my campus paper. And I had, I toured a little bit. I worked for PETA, obviously, did Warped Tour for them. And I started writing for Substream the summer of 2017. Yes, connected with their editor at the time. And he was like, we need writers. So that worked out pretty well. And full time, I work at Hip Video Promo, a music video promotion company in New Jersey. Got my job largely because of my writing background. Being able to write well as having organizational skills is a very big asset that not everyone has that combination. I ended Circles and Sound Waves, my blog, 2018, focused on stuff with Substream. I left Substream last fall. I put out a book end of last year, and this spring I started my podcast, Generation GC, which is all about Good Charlotte. So it's, whereas everything I did at Substream or Access or Circles and Sound Waves would be like a different band every week, I just get to do something much, much more detailed and focused. So it's been a fun switch.
Very cool, very cool. So Good Charlotte's been your focus lately, just focusing podcast weekly, or how?
Yeah. Weekly. I have not missed a week yet. I'm moving into in actually exactly 2 weeks. So I'm trying to stay ahead of editing so I don't have to miss a week, but if I have to, I have to.
Well, very cool. Very cool. Yeah. And then, next up, I think something we both hopefully enjoyed. What did you think of Arizona's Thursday live stream? And do you think, was this a typical Arizona performance to you? Was this out of the ordinary? Just love to hear your thoughts on that first off.
So the only time I've seen them in concert was last June when I had, interviewed them for that piece and everything. I thought it was good. I will say I noticed, I think Zac forgot the words to Where You Are briefly. But yeah, I mean, other than that, it definitely felt like a typical Arizona performance. Some of the songs on Asylum had been released, like Find Someone, Freaking Out, and Nostalgic. They played when I saw them last June. But a lot of the stuff on Asylum, I don't think they ever really got to play because they never really got to tour off of it. So it was really cool to hear all those songs. I loved that. I loved hearing Still Alive. That was amazing. And I liked what they did with the lights and the stage setup, because I think it was kind of proof that you don't need something that's like a set. You don't need to make the stage like its own thing, but it was like a little something. It just kind of tied it together really nicely. And yeah, I mean, it was me on my couch in my living room. It wasn't me with 2,500 people, but I felt as much as you can without other people there. I felt the same energy.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. I mentioned that in something I'm writing, how we were all just kind of, sitting in our living room on the couch, but kind of all something that was connecting us at the same time, though, even if we didn't really feel that. But I thought that was really great. Did the fact that it was a live stream change anything about the performance to you at all?
I mean, one of the moments that sticks out to me about seeing them in person, and that makes me state that as the most fun show I went to last year, is just enjoying myself and singing along and dancing and turning to face random people and just like dancing with random people, you know? And so you do lose out on that experience when it's a live stream. You know, they played with so much energy, even so. And I can't even imagine like how hard it is to try to like capture that energy when you're being filmed and it's not like everyone with you in the room. But yeah, I mean, like the stage, I'm sure, I don't know if they've played that room before, but for me, it was like I definitely lost out on obviously having other people around and getting that energy. I, I can't even imagine how they kept the energy without everyone there.
Yeah, I mean, that was something I really noticed too when, especially with Zac as he came out, just jamming along with Nathan and everything, how he was just really
Yeah.
energized by each other. They really seemed like there was a crowd there on almost.
Yeah.
It was like,
yeah.
Of course there wasn't. I mean, there were maybe like 3 people that they were facing.
Right, like the crew, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that says a lot about the band when someone's willing to do that, because I've seen live streams where it's obviously a live stream, it's
Yeah.
they're just sitting there, but
like sitting on their couch and
exactly.
I don't know if you know this. I can't remember if I had put this in my piece, but before Arizona, Zac had never been on stage.
Oh yeah, I think you did mention that. I remember that.
So like, and it's like, what? Like, he's so dynamic, but he's not too anything. Like, he's not too aggressive or moody or anything. Like, he just has this really great dynamic kind of presence.
He did. Yeah, he was fun to watch, honestly. I think they were all fun to watch, but he really commanded that show. I mean, you think that this trend and, performance and widespread behavior is true for any band that performs live? Do you think that any band could have, can harness that energy out of themselves, or is it varying band to band?
I think it varies band to band, and it also varies on like how you approach a live stream. I'm hoping to watch Youngblood's live stream in a few weeks, and I know he filmed that in like actual venues, but a live stream where it's like the two, the singer and the guitarist, and they're like playing acoustic guitar on their couch, it's just not going to have the same energy as in a venue, full band with some lights. Does that mean any band isn't capable of doing something like that? If they have the resources, I think more bands could. But no, I mean, I don't think every band has like a stage presence. I feel like that word is so cliche, but I don't think every band has the ability to maintain that stage presence even without a crowd.
Exactly. Yeah, I like what you said about the acoustic, because that's what a lot of bands,
especially
Onset, did.
And I've watched a few, and like Good Charlotte did one that was awesome, and they told all these stories. It made it such a cool experience, but just completely different from a live show. Whereas like what Arizona did was definitely like much closer to a show.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So, you've photographed quite a few concerts as well as interviewed, some incredible artists that I was reading about on your blog, like San Holo.
Thank you.
Yeah, San Holo, Walk the Moon. What makes Arizona unique compared to those other bands that you experienced and interviewed?
I think Arizona has something that can relate to a lot of different people. In their lyrics, yes, but also in their music. Like, I think in my piece, I said alt electro pop. So they have this electronic side, they have this pop side, they have this alternative, very emotional and introspective side, but they're not one thing. So I think they can appeal to a lot of different people. I think their lyrics, to me, their lyrics are like very clever. And I think something I've also really appreciated is that they are a band, like they are a group. And yes, obviously, Walk the Moon is a band and Good Charlotte is a band, and but in like the electronic and pop kind of space, you don't always see bands. And Arizona are a band and they're not like factory produced. Like those guys have been friends for ages. So they have like a really special connection. And I feel like that's what allows them to get more vulnerable in their lyrics and write the songs that they do.
For sure, for sure. That's a great point. I think you can feel that energy when they're on the stage. There's some it's like you could definitely tell that these guys, yeah, hated each other off the stage or whatever. Not so much into modern day, but these guys, I mean, and I think that came out in their energy as well. Just when, like I said, Zach, he would go over and he would have fun with whoever was on there. How I'm curious though, how has your, you've done some photography and concert photography. How has your experience as a photographer kind of enhanced your view of these bands or just of music in general? Because I know it's a very unique position to be in.
Sure.
Close up, different passes. I know go different places. But how has that contributed to that?
So I was not photographing the Arizona show. Like I took that one shot of them backstage after our interview, but I wasn't photographing the whole show. I just wanted to be clear about that.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's made me pay attention to. I would love to photograph Arizona, because I think all my photography experience has made me really pay attention to the way bands move on stage. I think it's especially, people look at the singer, but like especially the guitarists and the drummers and the people that don't always get photographed as much. So it's made me pay attention to the way people move around on stage. Uh, Sometimes you can kind of anticipate it, but you can't always. It's made me, really think about lights anytime I go to a concert. So I think it's just made me appreciate like the visual aspect of all of it, like even more.
Yeah, it's really you kind of zoned in on one spot, or if you will, I've always noticed that when I worked at concerts, I would kind of concentrate on one person, like the drummer or something, for a little bit, and it just kind of it gives you almost hear their sound a little more, you focus in on the drums a little more, and then all of a sudden it kind of just brings this whole new perspective in. But that's a very good point. Um, so, like after interviewing the band, you mentioned a couple unique aspects about them. After you interviewed them, what real specific trait did you find out that they really brought to the music world that made them, distinguishable from similar, let's say, electro pop groups like like Chelsea Cutler or something like that?
Well, I mentioned, first that they do have that group aspect and they have that friendship. Uh, and I think they have a desire to connect with their listeners emotionally in a way that not all pop or electro pop artists do. And that doesn't make that not valid, but I think Arizona, especially talking about Hold the Line and the backstory of all that, they're really motivated to connect with listeners emotionally. On a level of them as people, of course, this was the 25 minutes that I got with them, but I, I really appreciate it. I'm from New Jersey, they're from New Jersey, and there is like a certain grit I think you have from New Jersey that you don't get if you're from New York City, because it I think you're like a little rougher, you're a little able to take things, but you're sensitive to, and you don't, you're not pretentious. Um, so I just really appreciate that about them.
Yeah, very good point. And I think it's also, almost incredible how they were this, just this group of producers that were kind of like, oh, let's just do this for fun. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's like, like Zach has never even been on stage prior to him, starting his career. Like, it's just incredible that they come out and they can, produce such emotionally connecting songs and incredibly well produced songs.
It was like shocking to me that they weren't like initially planning to be a band, because some of the stuff, it talks a lot of their stuff talks about like insecurities in relationships and dealing with anxiety and just trying to hang in there, and it, these really like nuanced concepts of how you relate to other people. And I'm like, not to say that you couldn't write that for someone else, but some of that to me, it's like it's so vulnerable that like that seems like something someone's writing for themselves to sing. And obviously that's what they're doing now, but it impresses me definitely that they were not initially planning to kind of be performers themselves, but clearly it worked out.
Yeah, it really does add something to them as a band, and I think this is a good segue into kind of my next question. The band at the very end touched on a very relevant and difficult subject at the end. Mental health. With the song "Freaking Out," they said to come from a time that was a very dark time before COVID. How has Arizona tried to advocate for mental health in their work, just in general?
I mean, they always talk about freaking out. Before freaking out, they always, I think, will like to say something about how important it is to take care of yourself, take care of each other. I believe they've partnered with Hope for the Day. I'm not sure exactly in what way, so you would have to look that up. And I think with Hold the Line too, I think the story of how Hold the Line came together was like really touching to me and like really sad, really poignant. That they had written this and then Tim was working on it, but they didn't even find out he was really working on it till after he passed. And the song has this message of how important it is to push on, to persevere. So I felt like that really connected with them. So I think a lot of it is through their music, just writing stuff that's vulnerable. And Asylum, a lot of Asylum, I think, talks about mental health, but not just like I'm depressed, I have anxiety. It's like some really nuanced things. Like, Let Me Know. To me, that song comes from a place of a lot of anxiety and insecurity. Like, please just let me know if you love me, right? Uh, and I think having songs that talk about things like that, it's so important because it connects with people and it helps make them feel like they're not alone.
Yeah, that's a very good point because, and like different songs connected to different people in different ways, right? Like that's what's so genius about it almost is that, while they may have written it with something in mind, it might have, connected with somebody on a totally different level, deeper level. And just, they might have, when you find a song that you identify with your feelings, it's different, right? It's comforting, which is very, what I love about them the most, I think.
I think it's that, and it's like I'm wearing a Pentimento sweatshirt, and like I love that band, but that band to me is like I listen to them when I'm really sad. I don't listen to Pentimento like when I'm happy. I can listen to Arizona when I'm happy. I can listen to them when I'm sad. I can listen to them when I'm driving in my car and I'm really stressed out after a long day at work. So, and they connect in like a little bit of a different way each time.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very cool, and I think that it makes it really engaging to listen to.
Yes. Yes.
So how do you think that mental health awareness has kind of manifested itself in the industry as a whole over like the past 10 years? As we, as it comes to be surfaced more, how do you think it's manifested itself?
I mean, there's definitely more visibility, which is good. When I was growing up, when I was like in middle school, high school, some bands talked about it, but it definitely was not like a widely talked about thing. It was still a little taboo. And I definitely think it's still taboo to some extent. I think it's a lot more acceptable for artists to say, like Julia Michaels has been very open about the fact that she deals with anxiety. Loud has been very open about his mental health and loneliness and how that's affected him. So I think it's been a lot more accepted for artists to talk about mental health, and I think that's good. I think artists have also become aware of like, when a kid says, "Oh, your band saved my life,"
Mm-hmm.
people are getting a little more nuanced and be like, is that really like the right thing to say? Like, no, the band didn't save your life, but maybe the band gave you courage to ask for help, which, ultimately saved your life. However, whatever way you want to take that. I think there's definitely more talk about it, which is good. And I think we need artists to write songs that reflect mental health that aren't just I'm really sad and I'm crying, or well, I used to be really depressed and I used to want to hurt myself, but now I don't anymore and life is great. You need stuff that talks about the nuance. Again, back to Arizona. I think, yeah, I think there's more visibility, more people talking about it, and hopefully that leads to better understanding as a whole. Like, for example, workplaces accepting a mental health day as a sick day, things like that, people not judging each other on an individual level for having anxiety or being depressed or whatever.
Exactly. I think that's a really good point. And I think, do you kind of see, like, within the next 10 years, how do you see that shifting? Do you see it becoming hopefully more visible, or it being just a bigger part of the industry? I mean, it seems like right now it's especially in this time, people are coming out and sharing their individual experiences. So do you think that that message becomes more personal with artists?
I think, I don't think any person should feel obligated to share their very personal experiences with mental health on a public level. Because, like, I think that's a lot of pressure. I think when people do choose to do that, like I've done that, in various ways, various platforms I've had, in ways that I have chosen, right? I don't think anyone should ever be obligated to share their story. I will think what I hope is that people will become more comfortable talking about mental health on like a daily level, not just like I have anxiety, but like, hey, my breathing is really shallow right now. My chest is tight and I'm really, really worried about X, Y, and Z. Can we talk? So I think that's what needs to happen. And I think so that I think hopefully people will become more comfortable with taking medications if they need, or going to therapy or whatever lifestyle changes. I hope that artists continue writing music that talks about their mental health. And I hope that it continues in that direction. Like we were saying with Arizona, I think artists, I hope to see artists continue writing very nuanced stuff. I mean, even the last Good Charlotte album was a lot more nuanced about mental health and all of that. And I think that's something that could continue, and I hope it does.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, it's very important for band, like you said, talking about your platform, to use that platform, if you choose to, you know to do good. I mean, you see a lot of people talking about that now. I mean, how important do you think it is that bands and, let's just say celebrities in general and famous people in general use that platform to advocate for things like mental health awareness, justice, stuff like that? How important do you think that is?
I mean, I think it's super important. Again, though, I definitely don't think anyone should feel obligated to share their story, whether it's mental health or if we're talking about like sexual assault, which also is a big problem in music. It's a whole separate thing we could go into. Um, I don't want any artist, I don't want to see artists like talking about mental health because they feel obligated to, because they feel like they should, because I think that that's not authentic. I think that's just doing what seems right and is not genuine in any way. I hope that more artists continue to use their platform. Uh, I hope to see it. And I think it is important when people do. And it's really, really great when people do use their platform responsibly. But I don't think anyone, and I don't think every artist has to turn every show into a fundraiser. But yeah, I think it's great. And if you have a public platform, hopefully you will try to use it for good in some way, whether that's doing a fundraiser or starting a conversation or whatever you choose to do.
Yeah, or just recognizing that the platform that you're on, whether you like it or not, your word carries more weight than you might think it does, and it carries more influence than you might think it has, right? So you can't just like, you have to be almost conscious about that in a way. I don't think some people realize that when they say certain things, but people listen to what famous people say regardless, right?
Oh yeah.
It is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's
I
a
mean,
very good point.
think about how scrutinized, I have a picture of her on my wall, so I'm thinking about it. Think about how scrutinized Taylor Swift is for everything that comes out of her mouth. You know, you're famous, people listen to what you say.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's a very good point. I mean, I like what you said about the authenticity too, right? Because it's almost like it's a lot of these messages aren't direct, right? We found them on our own, or maybe they were kind of hinted at through the title or, you know, through whatever. But a lot of the times what makes that message so meaningful is that we kind of discovered that personal, that, you know, like that personal aspect of it on our own, right? We all of a sudden come to say, hey, you know, I really identify with what that says, or, oh, that makes me feel like, you know, I'm not alone in this, you know, type of feeling.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, so going back to that, to the performance as a whole, what song that was performed that night, you know, best captures this, you know, let's say pivotal time that we're in now?
Can I pick two?
Sure, go ahead.
So Freaking Out and Still Alive. I think Freaking Out is great, and I think a lot of people, especially as we like wait for election results and everyone has been, you know, I am like sitting at my computer refreshing Google every 30 to 40 minutes as if anything is going to change in the next 24 hours. You know, I'm like reading before bed and I turn the lights off, but it's like 11:30 p.m. and I'm like, I should check again. So I think a lot of people relate to that anxiety and that just feeling of being uncomfortable in your own skin. And then Still Alive, because through all of this, like, we are still alive. You know, he talks about the pain and the pills and the shame should have killed me. And it's like everyone has dealt with the stress of the pandemic this year, which, you know, affects how school works. It affects work. Lots of people have lost jobs, especially in music, you know. I'm very lucky and grateful to be employed. Relationships and health and, you know, oh my god, I want to see my mom but she's 5 states away, you know. I think, but we've persevered, like we've as of right now we're still alive and we made it through. And, you know, whereas Freaking Out, I think, to me, like, that gives me comfort that, okay, like, I'm not alone in like being super anxious. I think Still Alive, that's like the pump up song, like, hey, you did it, you can keep doing it, like, let's go.
Yeah, very good point. I like, Freaking Out anymore. Think of it that, you know, it really is those two songs, especially. And I was thinking that during the performance too, like even the song, you know, I think it's titled Running. That was the one that I kind of thought, you know, like we're keeping, you know, we're going and everything. Like there were various times throughout the night where I thought that. So I think they did a really good job. Even that, and you know, they probably didn't even intend for that to be the very big case. You know, what I like what they did is I don't know if they actually mentioned the word COVID once in that whole performance, you know, or they did maybe at the end, but
maybe like briefly, but it wasn't like a focus.
Yeah, like that wasn't the focus of the night, which I think helped people, you know, take their mind off of that and, you know, just kind of settle in and a little bit more introspective.
Yeah. And I think Arizona is in general just very introspective in a way that, like, again, a lot of like electronic or pop artists or groups aren't. And that's something that I really appreciate about them.
Me too. Yeah. So zooming even further out of the performance, you know, in 10 years, how do you think we'll look back on this time in music history, in the industry history?
That's tough. And it's kind of hard to say because I think it really depends on like when tours are allowed to happen. Like, I have a ticket for My Chemical Romance that got rescheduled to next September. But like, if I'm being honest, I don't really expect to be in a room with 15,000 people next September. Like, no way. It's November. It's, you know, the idea, A, that I will be in a room with 15,000 people, period. You know, B, that people would travel. People, you know, that a band would go not just from A to B, but from point A to point B to C to D. I hope that in 10 years touring has recovered, but, you know, I think the unfortunate side effect is that probably some bands will break up because it's going to be so long until they can tour again, right? And yeah, they have live streams and putting out music and selling merch, but you're losing like a big portion of your income. So yeah, I mean, I think drive-in shows. Arizona did a drive-in show too, but I think maybe those will be more common. But it's really hard to say without knowing like how long COVID will last. But I unfortunately do expect a lot of bands to end up sadly breaking up. In 10 years, I think once it's safe to tour again, I think there will be a lot of excitement for it. Once people feel like COVID is done and it's not just that they can go to a show, but that it's safe. Which honestly, like, could and probably will be a few years. I think people will be excited to go to shows once they do.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it head on, right? Like, we all like to think that, Red Rocks, they scheduled all their stuff for next summer, right? But even then we're like,
it's not happening next summer.
Yeah, exactly.
No
it was just unfortunate because, that's such an incredible, shrine of music, the industry. It's sad to see it empty, but I also find that people are finding creative ways to adapt to it too. I think the drive-in one, live streams, live streaming in the venue is another thing. But again, like, it's just not the same. Like, there's being at Red Rocks and then there's not being at Red Rocks, right?
Right. And it's, I would totally watch like a Red Rocks live stream. Like, that'd be awesome, but it's not the same income for artists. So I think, I don't know. I hope to see all my favorite bands continue to stay together, but will they? I don't know. I have no idea. It's hard to say. And I feel like, maybe next summer people will do like outdoor socially distant shows, but who knows? And I think, I feel like by next summer there will still be like travel restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
So my uneducated guess, but so that obviously impacts the ability of anyone to tour, really. So who knows,
Exactly. Yeah. Well, once again, I want to thank you, so much for your time. And this was a really, I think, great conversation, just about, not about
Thank you.
But in general. Quickly tell people where can they find your podcast, Generation GC, and your other photography and writing?
Sure. So yeah, Generation GC is on Apple, Spotify. It's also on YouTube. It's on Google Podcasts. You can also find it on any of the apps like Overcast or Stitcher, anywhere you listen to podcasts. I also have a website, mhudelson.com, and then Twitter and Instagram, mhudelson.
Awesome. Well, like I said, thank you again so much. Stay safe, obviously, and hopefully we'll see some more live streams in the future. And
I hope so.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're very fun. So thank you so much once again.
Thank you for listening to Crave the Podcast. Crave the Podcast is produced by myself, Jake Trujillo, Zac Clement, and Kalyan Lemercier. Make sure to follow Crave the Sound on Instagram and subscribe wherever you like to listen. You can also check out our YouTube channel for weekly episodes. See you next week!